Parents call it estrangement. Adult children are more likely to call it no contact. But regardless of what you call it, there's a near epidemic of adult children cutting off their parents. It used to happen primarily to parents who had severely abused their children, or there was a difficult divorce and your ex forced your kids to choose between you and them and they didn't pick you. But nowadays, it's just as likely to have so many more reasons for children to break up with their parents. It could be anything from it's your daughter-in-law, your son-in-law that's driving the estrangement. It could be your kid just decides to dump you because of differences in your personalities, your politics, your lifestyle. There are just so many more reasons today why this is happening. The cutoff is oftentimes accompanied by demands of some kind, a demand that you apologize, that you start observing their boundaries, that you get your own therapy, or that you just go away. I'm Dr. Jan Anderson, and estrangement counseling is one of my specialties. And you know what? I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even my worst enemy. That's how painful it is. It's a topic that I work with clients, and I also do a lot of writing about this for MD Update magazine and on social media. This is a very painful topic. And as I learn more and as my knowledge grows, I like to keep sharing what I am seeing and learning about this, what some people might call a personal growth opportunity, or what I like to refer to it as is a freaking growth opportunity that we call estrangement. I do have some good news. Most of the mistakes that parents make, the traps that we may fall into, you can pretty much chalk it up to just people being human. And the great thing about humans is we're very intelligent and adaptive. We're usually good at figuring out how to get out of a trap and update our mindset so we don't fall into that same trap, make that same mistake again. That's the good news. So with that in mind, let's start with some hardball about how estrangement really works. And then I'd like to follow that up with what I have found to be the two primary skills that you can use to, number one, just reduce the suffering that many parents who are estranged experience. And those very same things that help reduce your suffering are also what can help you reconnect and reconcile with your adult child. So when I say the hardball of how estrangement really works, what I'm talking about is the mindset shifts that you have to make when you're the parent that's being estranged. And here's the first one. The recognition that your adult child may be unwilling or unable to do the work that's required to manage the conflict and reconnect with you. Here's what's behind that. Usually as parents, we want more connection and closeness with our adult children than they want with us. That's just something that happens. It's natural. There's nothing odd about it, but it does sting for an adult parent to have to, a parent rather, to become aware that you're not the priority in your child's life that you used to be. That's a hard transition to make. So when it comes to estrangement, just to recognize that your adult child may feel nowhere near the sense of urgency that you do to heal this rift. They may be sitting there thinking, I've got the rest of my life ahead of me. It's not a big priority. I have plenty of time, or I can focus on other things. It's a totally different mindset that they may be operating with. And they may just say, I'm not willing to take time to do this right now. In other words, the unwillingness. I'm just not willing to work on this right now. The other aspect is maybe they're just not able to do it. They may not have the social skills to deal with conflict and conflict management. I mean, I don't know too many people that really are good at conflict management. Most of us seem to be conflict avoidant. And if you think about it, that can be a big part of what's going on with your adult child. They're not good at conflict. They want to avoid it. And the only way to avoid it can sometimes be an extreme form of avoidance. Cut off contact completely. And you have to admit, it's a simple solution. If you don't know what else to do, that's pretty straightforward. The second mindset shift that may be necessary is recognizing that the balance of power has shifted. So in the beginning, when your adult child starts doing or saying things that you don't like, it's easy to forget that the balance of power is shifted. But the reality is, from a negotiating standpoint, you are now in a one-down position. And here's an example of how that might play out. Let's say that your adult child has a very different recollection of their childhood and a different perception of your parenting. It would seem, unfair or maybe totally inaccurate to you, what they're saying. And it would be very natural to assume that you should at least be able to explain yourself or defend yourself and offer your perspective. It's natural to think that, but it's also a trap. So if your first move is to try to talk your adult child out of their perception or convince them that they're wrong in their perception, that they shouldn't feel the way they feel, it's not a good move at this stage. That doesn't mean that your feelings don't count or that your perception doesn't count and that you shouldn't be able to talk about it. It's a matter of timing. What I'm saying is you definitely need to process your feelings. You just need to be processing them with someone else, not with your adult child at this stage. And if you lead with disagreeing and arguing about their perception or feelings, that's what we call in marriage counseling a harsh startup. And what we know about harsh startups is that if a conversation begins that way, it's almost guaranteed to not end well. The third mindset shift that I find really helpful for parents is to take a close look at what you're getting out of your current strategies with your adult child. Here's one strategy that's very common. You go what I call covert and clandestine. And those sound like pejorative words. I don't mean to be judgmental when I say them. Here's what I mean. When you feel really helpless, when you're in that one-down position, it's really easy to resort to things like guilt trips, subtle pressure, other forms of manipulation to try to get that connection or something, from your adult child. And those moves are really tempting because they can actually work. You can succeed at making your adult child feel guilty, making them feel pressured. Here's the problem with that, though. Just don't expect them to, therefore, want to be around you. Think about it. Here's what it costs you. When you go covert and clandestine, what it costs you is relationship connection. Because why would your adult child want to be around someone who makes them feel bad? What do you get when you go desperate? That's a tempting place to go because we think that if we go desperate, surely that would elicit some empathy from our adult child. The way one distraught father put it to me is, I think if my daughter could just see how much this is tearing me up, I think that she would stop doing this to me. You know what my response was? Don't count on it. Here's more likely how she's going to perceive it. You're a narcissist and you're making it all about you. And that was hard to say, but it's true. Here's what's most important at this stage is recognizing that, yeah, the balance of power may have shifted between you and your adult child. That does not mean you have to become a total victim to this situation. There are certainly ways that you can reclaim some of your sanity and just learn to strategize better. And what that does is it increases your chances of getting what you really want, reconnection with your adult child. So what would work better? Here's what I like to focus on with my clients. There's two primary things that work better than going ballistic, going manipulative, or going desperate. And this is how I like to describe them when I'm working with someone. How are we going to build your resilience, your emotional resilience? And the second thing is, how are we going to increase your strategic thinking skills? And the magic of those two things, emotional resilience and strategic thinking, is that they reinforce each other. So as you get more resilient, you're able to think more strategically. You're smarter. You use better strategies. And those better strategies also tend to have a calming effect on your emotions. They help you feel better. They help you bounce back. Here's what I mean by emotional resilience. It's basically just two practical skills that help you cope with these stressful interactions in the moment as they're happening without making things worse. That's the idea. In other words, how do you replace your habitual freak-out behaviors with something that's going to work better? It's just short-term coping strategies. That's all we're talking about. And my favorite tool for helping someone build that kind of emotional resilience is app-based. It's based on the research by Dr. Judson Brewer. And there are little practices that you can do that take 20 to 30 seconds that will help build your ability to ground yourself physically, regulate your emotions, and be able to just get through these stressful situations. And the other great thing about the app is that you can do it retroactively. You can go back and process, even if the interaction didn't go well, you can still go back and use those practices to help you process, calm yourself down, and prepare yourself to do better next time. The second skill is thinking longer term. We call this emotional regulation, but it's basically making shifts in your daily habits, your lifestyle, your routine that help keep you more in balance so you're less likely to get emotionally frayed. So those are really basic things that people notice they're doing. Am I getting too isolated? Is that getting me out of balance? Am I getting enough rest? Am I drinking too much? My favorite comment is a client who said, I know I'm in trouble when I find myself eating ice cream for breakfast. So that's the longer term, and you pair that with the short-term coping strategies, and you again can see how those two things work together to help create some kind of foundation that you can work from to basically deal with relationship stress, because that's what we're talking about. It's with a specific person, but it's relationship stress. The other key skill to focus on is how can we get you thinking more strategically? You know, I said earlier, it's important to recognize that the balance of power has shifted. You are now in a one-down position, if you were thinking of this in terms of a negotiation. And in essence, that is what's happening. You didn't ask for this, but it is being forced upon you to renegotiate the terms of relationship with your adult child. When you start thinking of it in that negotiator's mindset, what I like about that is it automatically frees up your problem-solving capacity in your brain, literally. And it can also help with some of the negative emotions that can be associated with being stuck in a deadlock mindset. It almost forces you out of deadlock And here's what I mean by that. If you go into a negotiation with someone, you almost have to consider their perspective. You don't have to agree with it or think that it's valid or believe in it, but you at least have to recognize that there's another perspective coming in when you go into a negotiation. That's what I'm suggesting that you start to do more with your adult child. In fact, I think it's the estranged parent's superpower. And here's an example of how it might work. What if they're not doing this because they enjoy hurting you? What if they're not doing it because they don't care about you anymore? What if they're actually doing it because they're in pain? What if it's more about them? They're in pain and they're trying to figure out what to do that's in their best interest. Can you get kind of a sense of how there's a shift in that? It's harder to take it quite so personally when you take in that adult child's perspective into account. So like I said, I think it's the estranged parent's superpower. And when you put those two together, your ability to become more emotionally resilient and your ability to think more strategically, all of a sudden things can start moving forward for you. So here's the bottom line. What this is about is to help you accept what is and at the same time keep working for change. What that means is you find ways to go on with your life, live your life without giving up and without abandoning hope. It can also help you love your child from a distance. And best of all, to me, it can empower you to learn from this experience and not be destroyed by it. If you find my insights on estrangement helpful, go to my website for more resources. If you want to book a telephone consultation with me, I can usually be available within 24 hours. On the next screen, you'll see a video with 3 questions that will help us quickly figure out, am I the right helping professional for you?